Hey, welcome to Flexible Dieting Consultant to Masher. This is going to be the first episode of macro stripping. So, I've been an amateur cook since I was a teenager, and when I got into flexible dieting about 5 years ago, the problem I kept running into is a lot of the foods I had were overburdened with fat, and I could just never fit them into my macros. One of my favorite cuisines is Indian food, and as I found when I started cooking Indian food, the recipes just call for just incredible amounts of fat. So if you're making a curry sauce, like no kidding, you can find recipes that call for a whole cup of vegetable oil, and then towards the end, as you're adding ingredients to sort of specialize the curry, you're going to be adding ghee, which is just clarified butter. And there was no way for me to manage my macros and fit Indian food in, other than if I was doing a cheat day or something like that. But I couldn't eat it regularly without missing my macros. So what I did last spring is I went out and bought, I went to an Indian spice or Indian food store and bought pretty much every spice that I would need for a lot of the curries, and then I just started macro stripping. And by that, I went in, looked at actual recipes, and found everything that was going to cause me to be outside of the macros. Again, the vegetable oil, the ghee, and so forth. And I stripped those out and saw, hey, how can I get further along with this recipe with either a reduced amount of that ingredient, or can I just carte blanche take it out of the recipe altogether? And what I found when I was going through this process with a lot of different curries is you actually didn't need all that fat in it. So I've got a lot more mileage out of a little bit of coconut oil, and then just using some techniques where you weren't completely frying stuff. You might use a little bit of water and some lower heat and so forth. But I was definitely able to find some ways to strip out a lot of the fat in these recipes, a whole lot of the fat. And then what I really found is the spices of the whole game anyway. So the reason Indian food is good is because you're using amazing spices. So it really didn't have a whole lot to do with the fat in these recipes, and so I was able to find a great path forward to strip out a lot of the fat out of these recipes. Now, just to preface, this isn't going to be traditional Indian food cooking. So I was lucky enough, I guess the Christmas before last, my sister-in-law's father is Indian, and we were up in Atlanta for Christmas, and then he did the whole 9 yards. He was, the moment he finished his coffee in the morning, he was started on peeling potatoes and doing that. That's not what we're talking about here. I'm doing more of a British curry house style curry, which is to say, hey, you got a bunch of drunk people that came into your restaurant at 1 o'clock in the morning. You can't make stuff from scratch. So what these curry houses do is they make big vats of sort of a base curry sauce, which is what we're going to start with. And then when people come in and order certain different curries, they add some specific ingredients to a pan, whatever meat, and then they ladle in a scoop or two of the base curry sauce, and that's how you sort of streamline the process so that you're 90% along the way. And so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to make a base curry sauce with a lot of fat, most of the fat stripped out, and then we're going to make a sort of a basic chicken curry. But I'm going to show you some spices, and then we'll jump into making the basic. Right, so here we are in my Indian spice world. I got some commercial ones up front here. This is a really good brand, Penzies. I order these online now and again as I'm getting low with some of them, but these are sort of the conglomerates of the individual spices. So when you go to Indian restaurants, I'm sure you've seen curry before. I'm sure you've seen vindaloo on the menu. This is one that's usually pretty spicy, tandoori. These are collections of different spices, and then another sort of a middle ingredient is garam masala. You'll often see this as sort of an addition to some of the other curries, but really these are all collections of all these different spices. I got paprika, I've got coriander, I've got cardamom, I've got black cardamom, got some ginger, cloves, cumin. These sort of collections of all those spices are similar to what you'd see for, like, say, pumpkin spice, where there's no such thing as pumpkin spice. You got all the cookie spices in here. You've got cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, so forth. And then if more traditional European cooking, you've got herbes de Provence, where you got thyme, basil, and so forth, and a collection of other ingredients. So this is what these are. So there's no curry powder, there's no vindaloo. They're all a collection of these different ones. But I just wanted to point that out. For our base curry sauce today, we're going to be using some paprika and some turmeric. This is what gives curry its yellow color, and then we're also going to be using some cumin seeds. Now, I don't have any cumin right now. All I have is the seeds. So what I'm going to do is use my my coffee grinder. I have 2 coffee grinders, one for coffee, one for spices. I'm never consistent, so I think all my Indian spices have some coffee in them, and then my coffee always sort of tastes like curry a little bit when I'm making it at home. So, but this is what I'm going to use to grind up some cumin seeds for the 3rd ingredient. Now for our non-spice ingredients, what I got here is I got the ghee, the clarified butter, and then the oil. This is what generally are called for. We're not going to use it. We're going to use a much less amount of coconut oil. Again, I love coconut oil. I think it has a much better flavor than those, and you can get away with using, you know, 1/10 to 1/20 of the amount we're going to get from those. And then we've got some ingredients here. Tomatoes, garlic, and ginger, and onion are really going to be the stars of the sauce. And then in the background you're going to have some carrot, and then I've got a few other ingredients in here, some chilies and some red pepper that we're going to use once we take the base sauce and then tailor that into a curry sauce. Alright, so we're going to actually try to do some live action here with some actual cooking, and I'm going to try to speed it up and make this real fancy. So let's jump into it. Ingredients, we've got onion, which is going in first with sparing amount of coconut oil. As that cooks along, we'll be adding the carrots and the peppers. I didn't use I sort of haphazardly cut these. It's all going to be blended up with a submersion blender at the end, so it doesn't really matter. But so we got the peppers and the carrots next. I've got a little bit of the ginger and the garlic I turned into a paste with a little bit of water, and then we've got tomatoes, and then we're actually going to fry these towards the end in a separate pan, but we've got turmeric, paprika, and then fresh cumin, which I sent through the coffee grinder, and it already smells amazing. So I'm going to zero out the scale here, and I'm going to get myself about 5 grams of coconut oil. To the coconut oil goes the onions, which we sliced before, and we'll get that going. These are going to cook down for, I don't know, I'd say about 15 minutes before we jump in with the carrots and the peppers. Getting close. Starting to smell good. Woo! Ooh, getting close. We moved the camera. A little side view. Onions are smelling good. Definitely going to need a little bit more fat once these wind up, and we're adding the peppers and the carrots. Add a little bit of water. Alright, ready to add the peppers and the carrots. I'm going to try that. Let me zero it out here first. Alright, so let's try a little bit less than that. There we go, 5 grams of coconut oil. So now we're keeping a count here. We're now at 5 grams of coconut oil. So roughly 10 grams of fat. We're going to go in with the peppers and the carrots. Again, all this stuff's going to get run through the submersion blender, so it's going to be a smooth sauce. So the fact that I cut these all differently doesn't really matter. Alright, so I'm going to call an audible here so I don't have to fry the spices separately, and more importantly so I can go run some quarters while this is cooking. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add the last bit of coconut oil, again about 5 grams, so total we're going to be at 15 grams of fat for, again, this 4 to 6 servings. So going in with another 5 grams of coconut oil, going to add that up. I'm going to add the spices now and cook them rather than separate in a pan and put them in at the end. So I'm just going to shortcut the recipe a little bit. No one will be any the wiser. We'll cook off some of the sort of the chalky taste that you get with uncooked spices. Once that's good and going, it smells incredible already. Let me see if I can get a little picture of that. So you can see how the turmeric gives it that nice yellow flavor, orangey flavor. Especially in the onions, and maybe one more look. Woo, looking good. Alright, so we're going to add some water. It looks about good, so we're going to bring that to a heavy simmer, and then I'm not going to add this whole thing, but a good amount of this garlic ginger paste. And the reason I added water to this, so I put this in a blender and then added some water. And I added the water to the pan before this sort of paste I wanted a little bit of insulation between the garlic and ginger and the heat because I don't have a lot of fat. So especially the ginger's got a tendency to burn. If I apply that to a pan without a decent amount of fat, it's gonna 9 out of 10 times that's gonna burn. This is gonna simmer for about 30 minutes, so the ginger and the garlic will fully cook off. You're just not gonna have any caramelization on the ginger or the garlic. I haven't noticed much of a difference before. So a little out of breath from the run, but here's our curry base sauce, which has been simmering for about 25 minutes. I'm going to use a submersion blender to whip all this up into a smooth paste. But I'll show you. These vegetables. Here we are. This is the finished base sauce. It's pretty thick. Give it a little taste test. It's good, yeah. I salted it a little bit during the cooking process. I don't think I showed it, but not a lot, just a little bit, just to make sure it's not dull. So for the next part of this process, we're going to cook some chicken. I'm going to use some fat-free cooking spray, and then I've got 6 ounces or 168 grams of chicken, which I've weighed out. I'm going to add that to the pan. I'm not going to do any sort of crazy cooking technique. I really want the curry to be the star of the sauce, or the star of the meal. So I'm just going to do a basic saute on this chicken. I don't think you'd want to grill the chicken or do anything too wild with it. To do anything that would overpower. I've got a few ingredients here. Once the chicken's cooked, I'm going to take the chicken off the pan. I've got a poblano pepper. I don't know if you've ever had a chili relleno. This is what they use for those. So it's like it's in between like a jalapeno and a bell pepper. I've also got a chili here, and then a clove of garlic. So I'm going to saute those in some coconut oil, along with some hot curry powder and a little bit of garam masala, which is again one of those Indian spice mixes that's just a bunch of different stuff, sort of a smorgasbord of Indian spices, if you will. And then at the end, I'm just going to add some fresh cilantro or coriander if you're English, and then I'm going to add a little bit of lime juice. But I'm going to dice that up, and then by then the chicken will be done, and then we'll get into the next step of this meal. Fortunately, I had some technical difficulties during that last part. So as you know by now, I screwed up the filming of the last part of the meal. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to refilm. I don't have all the same ingredients, so I can't sort of fake it. But I am going to make it interesting, I'm going to make it extraordinarily hot, see if I can burn myself, so that will be the punishment. And then we'll go back to the finished meal, which I did record, and we'll pretend like this never happened. Deal? Okay, let's do it. Alright, so here we go again, round 2. We're going to cook the chicken in some non-fat spray, a little bit of that. Going to salt it with some Himalayan sea salt, and then last time around I seasoned it with some pepper, but I don't know, let's do something, and I can't even remember what this spice rub was, but we'll try something a little bit different. It's always fun to mix it up. So here we go, some chicken, round 2. Here we go, we're coming along. So what I'm actually going to do here is cook the aromatics while the chicken finishes. So I don't have any chilies left, but I do have some ginger and garlic. We're going to add the coconut oil, just like we did before. So let's see where we're at. There we go. A little bit high in there. Alright, so there we got the coconut oil. We'll add that. We're going to add in some ginger and garlic. And then to mix it up a little bit, instead of the garam masala and the spicy curry, we're going to go with vindaloo. Pull it there. We're going to fry those spices along with the aromatics and the coconut oil to get that going. There we go. A little bit more. We'll start cooking off those spices. Get the aromatics heating up. Oh, there it is. There's the heat. So vindaloo is one of the more spicy curries. So this is probably going to kick my butt a little bit. And let's bring the chicken in. Start picking that up. Get all that incorporated. And then the last thing is we start adding the base sauce. So a little bit at first, just to pick up all the good stuff at the bottom. You actually kind of want to make almost like a big paste. We go there, then overboard, and the chicken's just finishing up, and then we're going to add a little more sauce. You want just enough to coat everything, but then you want a little bit that's going to be able to bleed into your rice. And then if you're making naan, which we'll save for another day, you want something to be able to dip the naan in too. So we'll let this finish cooking off. and then a little bit of lime, and then we'll take it off the heat. So when you don't screw up the video cameraing, you end up with something like that. So it's really quick how quick it comes together. You're going to cook the chicken, you're going to add in your aromatics, you're going to add the base sauce, and this is how the curry houses are able to turn out chicken curry at 1 o'clock in the morning inside of 10 minutes. So here's the finished product. This is the chicken curry, or the chicken curry chicken vindaloo hybrid, and then I got some brown basmati. The macros for this meal is 46 grams of protein, 45 carbohydrates, and 17 fat. However, I did add 5 grams of coconut oil to the rice. If you wanted to exclude that, you'd obviously be down at 12 grams of fat. So this is an extremely macro-friendly way to eat Indian food. So we're going to go ahead and give this a taste test. A little bit of the chicken curry, a little bit of rice. It's really good. You don't miss any of the fat. This is as good as it gets. I live in Jacksonville, Florida, and there isn't a lot of good Indian food, probably the delicate way to say it. This is as good as the stuff I used to get when I lived in New York. You don't miss the fat. You get all the flavors that you had before. I really think Indian food's the best cuisine for macro stripping, because it's pretty simple, and once you take the fat out, you're left with all the stuff that makes it good. I can definitely taste the chilies, the spices. This is really good. So until next time, thanks for being with me. If you got any cuisines or any sort of things you'd like to be macro stripped in the future, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you next time for the next video.